And Accion Opportunity Fund is thrilled to partner with Liz Hanley from the financial consulting firm Liz is All Biz for today's bookkeeping discussion. Liz and her team help small business owners build accounting and bookkeeping systems and really make sure that businesses are well equipped to learn about their systems, learn about their books, and grow their businesses. Bookkeeping is one of those really, really important but often intimidating aspects of small business ownership. And so Liz is here to help demystify some of the core bookkeeping concepts and also make a few recommendations for you. So I will let you take it from here, Liz.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me here today. And I'm really excited to talk to you about some bookkeeping basics. Just a little bit about me. My name is Liz Hanley. I have a small firm based in San Francisco, California, although we serve clients all over the United States. We are an all-woman finance firm, and we specialize in helping women and minority business owners. We're actually very picky about our clients. And anyway, I got into this. I spent a lot of time in corporate finance early in my career, and I really love what I do. But I wanted to make money or help people make money that I really cared about what they were doing. So I started this business myself as a small business owner. So I've sat in your seat probably about, like 13 years ago. And so I have been running that, and I have a team of 25, 27 amazing women that work for me all over the country, helping entrepreneurs just like you at all stages of business. So it's one of my very favorite things to do. So we work with people on all parts of finance. And so today we're going to be talking about bookkeeping, and that's really the building block of so many of the financial discussions that you are going to have as a business owner. So you need strong books to understand your business, to be able to access aid like our friends provide, and also just to do the things you need to do, prepare your income tax returns. So again, it's a really fundamental thing. And often what I see in my practice is when I meet somebody, they need help with, let's say, they come to me for a different reason. I need help accessing, like last year, so many of the amazing aid packages were out there, and people needed their taxes done and these forms filled out, right, about the financial health of their business. And at that point, what I realized is that people didn't actually have those numbers readily accessible. So it took them longer to access all those programs. So it's really, really super important just to kind of have these systems in place. So with that, I'm going to kind of start with, why do you even need books anyway, right? Here's the thing, I get it. Like I said, I am also a small business owner myself. So I understand you have a million things going on. And even though I definitely have, I really love finance and I love numbers and kind of analyzing this, I understand that this might not be why you got into this, but it is really important. So why do you actually need to have bookkeeping? Well, first of all, you have to have it at the end of the year to do your taxes, right? So just like you just have to have it, you just gotta, right? So you can either do it as you go through the year, or you can do it all at once at the end of the year. Now, I'm sure some of you have had that experience of rushing to kind of put all those things together, tally up your expenses so that you can get something in to either prepare your taxes yourself or get them to your tax professional. If you are kind of doing it in that rushed fashion, you're likely to miss something. And also it's stressful. So why? So again, you're going to have these books done to get your income taxes done. Now, what I also talked about is, especially with last year, oftentimes you need those taxes done and to know where your business is. Like, are you up to last year Are you down to last year? Like, where are you? To be able to access other financial resources. Like there was a ton that came out with all the COVID relief stuff that was going on. And so you kind of had to have all your stuff together to be able to access that. Often for loan programs, folks are going to ask you lots of questions about your business, and you kind of need to not only give them ballparks, but give them actual financial statements. So this is what bookkeeping, that's kind of like the end result of bookkeeping, is to actually have these financial statements that you can do all these other things with. The other thing, and I know this is kind of like the sleeper of it, but I actually think this is actually probably even more important than the first two, is these financial reports that your bookkeeping systems are going to provide are going to be able to show you how your business is doing. Now, often so many of us, when we start our own businesses, it starts small. So maybe you're kind of keeping all those numbers in your head. Okay, that works kind of, and if I asked you about the health of your business, you'd probably think about like how much you had in the bank account. Now that is a measure of how you're doing, right? That is important, but that's not the whole picture. And so there comes a point as your business goes on where that isn't really going to serve you. It's not going to give you all the information that you need, right? So you're going to need something a little bit more sophisticated than just kind of like remembering your expenses and knowing how much you have in the bank. And of course, as you have more going on, hopefully you're making more money. So this is definitely a direction that you want to be going anyway. So again, for books, why do you need them? You want to be able to do those income taxes because you got to do them anyway, right? The feds in the state kind of require us to do it every year to be able to access aid. And, it's really a tool to be able to understand what's going on with your business. And, the more you kind of look at them, the more you'll understand. So hopefully you want to get your books done. So let's move on to the next slide and let's talk about how actually to do that, right? So let's say that we're starting from the most basic level where you're just kind of like, maybe you have like receipts somewhere, you kind of know how much is in your bank account, things like that. So what's the next step? So really what we're talking about here is keeping track of your income, your expenses, your assets, and your liabilities, right? So income, that's pretty straightforward, how much money you're getting in. And then kind of your expenses. So those are your business expenditures, kind of by type and the total, right? So kind of keeping those all in one place so that if I asked you, hey, how much do you spend on packaging or office supplies? You don't have to go tally receipts, that you can just kind of access a total right away. So how might you do this? So there's a couple different ways you can think about it. There's a lot of bookkeeping software out there. And that can be a great choice. I'm actually going to come back to that. Sometimes when I talk to small business owners about bookkeeping software, they potentially feel like, oh, it's another system to learn. It is. I'm not going to lie to you. You do have to learn it. And it's also another cost, right? So sometimes people will even start, they'll start doing like a hand ledger. I don't recommend that. It's easy to miss stuff. It is the cheapest option, but it also is the most time-intensive option, like tallying all those things up by hand. And I will tell you that I have done it. Another option that I've seen people do is to do all that kind of tallying and to use Excel. Again, or like a Google sheet or something like that. Absolutely possible to do this. But we're really going to only be able to kind of pull off an Excel or like in that like pencil and paper situation, the total of income and expenses. So all the other things like kind of keeping track to reconciling it against like a bank account or how much your loan balances are or your credit card balance, you're not going to be able to keep track of that in the same space. But, you know, thinking about, again, they're cheap. So that's something to think about. So sometimes it's, you know, especially if you don't have a ton of transactions, maybe being able to use something like Excel could be a solid choice as you're just getting started, right? Maybe you're an Excel wizard. I don't know. But probably you're going to be looking at some kind of bookkeeping software. So there's a bunch of different ones out there. Okay. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's ones that I've seen a lot of people use are QuickBooks. You've probably heard about that. They have both a desktop version and an online version. And if we start talking about kind of like online bookkeeping softwares, there's also FreshBooks, there's also Xero, Wave, there's kind of a variety of softwares out there. Now, here at This Is All Biz, we've used almost all of them. So what are you kind of thinking about? So let's say you've been living in an Excel world, kind of putting them together, all your income and your expenses together, and you're just like, it's too much. It's a pain in my butt. I would need to try something else. So what are the pros and the cons here of using a software? So the first con that I'm just going to tell you is just because let's be real, right? Is you're going to have to learn a new system. Now, I know you've got a lot going on, but here's the thing. If your business is going to stay the same size or grow, you're probably going to need something like this anyway. So you can either kind of like learn it now or learn it later, or spend a long time kind of putting together like Excels or paper ledgers. So basically, you're probably going to have to do this anyway. So you can just kind of decide when to start. So that's something to know. The other part is most of the more sophisticated ones, and I'm just going to be real here, you're going to have to pay a little something for. Okay, so the prices on these run from like $15 a month all the way up to, you know, for the really like wild ones with like invoicing features, and you can do bill pay and process things. And, you know, you could pay, I think, up to like $80 or $90 a month. I think most of you are not going to need that level, but you can expect to pay somewhere in like the $20 or $30 a month range. That seems pretty reasonable. And when I'm talking about like monthly, that's for folks that are using an online platform. So it means that you're doing your bookkeeping online and not through a desktop system. So I am going to take a second and I'm going to talk about desktop versus online, because this is online booking. These online services are newer in the last like 5 years. And so there's a lot of my colleagues that definitely use the desktop version. So I want to address this because I get this question all the time. So I've talked a lot about like the online softwares. And so that's a monthly subscription. You basically just need a device or a computer with an internet connection, and you can do your bookkeeping. And you can kind of, you could, you know, do some invoicing on your phone and then deal with the bank on your computer or something like that. So it can be really, really convenient. Or if you have a business partner, or maybe you have someone that works with you that helps you with the invoicing and you want them to be able to see part of it, but you want to do the rest of it. It's easy to kind of like divide it up, or it's flexible, right? So a desktop version, the thing with that is usually you're going to buy a license and it lives on one computer, right? So it lives on one computer at your house or at your office, and that's where the books are. The pros of that are you just have to pay for the license once, right? So that's fantastic. The licenses can be a little bit more expensive. So we're talking like $100, $200, something like that, depending on what you need. But you just have to pay for it once. So that can be useful. But again, it just can only be in one place. So it can, or like I said, it can only be on one computer. So What might be the pros or cons? Again, you pay for it all at once. You could keep it for a couple of years. That's cool. Less flexible, right? So harder to have either maybe some of your coworkers or staff help you out with stuff because they literally have to be on that computer. The other part of it is, and obviously this is what I do professionally, is help people with books and taxes, is if you get to a point in your business where you need help, anybody who's going to help you either has to like remotely access your machine or come and sit in front of the computer with you. So that can be a little bit more difficult. So just want to bring that up. Okay. Okay, so desktop, online. The other thing that I would say, kind of in talking with software, and I just want to let you know that I'm not affiliated with any software company. I have no allegiance anywhere. But I'm just going to say something just because it's true, right? I will say, maybe we should be mad about this. Maybe you should think about the QuickBooks Online. Okay, this is why. The reason I'm going to say this is because you should consider it, because it's kind of standard in accounting world and it's so widespread, right? And I guess this is true for some of the other bigger accounting software, that if you get stuck, more people that you know, like your entrepreneur friends or, you know, your sister's best friend who's an accountant, they probably know it and are going to be able to help you more. So you might want to think about using a bigger software just because it's going to be easier for you to get help. I know it's not a super popular opinion, but I don't know. I've been doing this for like almost 15 years. So it's just kind of real. So yeah, something to think about. That's like the QuickBooks Online is one we use a lot. I do have a lot of folks that use Xero. I've seen people use FreshBooks, stuff like that. But the little bit more obscure ones can be just more to get help with. So that's okay. Maybe you want to learn a lot about the software. Fantastic, go for it. It can still be a wonderful tool for you. Now, the other thing that I am going to bring up, and so we're kind of talking about basic setup, right? So you probably are going to want to get something, software, so that you can kind of help organize yourself. And so that it's going to take less time. So one of the things a bookkeeping software is going to really help you out with is, I think it's going to automatically import. I mean, you got to set it up just the once though. It will kind of import all the transactions from your bank, right? So you don't have to manually key them in. All you're going to have to do once you have it set up the right way is you can connect the bookkeeping software to your bank account. And then as you make purchases or you have income come in, you can just kind of tell the software like, that's packaging, like that's light bulbs, like that's paying the delivery driver, or you know what I mean? You can just kind of assign income or expense categories to these items as they come through. So that can take out a lot of the work. Again, it is something that you have to learn. So I'm not saying that it's not going to be frustrating to figure out what all those dumb buttons are, because probably it is. But once you know it, then it's going to take so much of the work out of this for you. So then really what a lot of your book time on bookkeeping is going to be doing is going to be going through and kind of assigning categories for stuff. So talking about having your bookkeeping software connected to your bank brings me to another important point. So I hope that you have a separate business bank account. One of the things that I've seen come up a lot for earlier stage business owners, and I will tell you that I was guilty of this at the beginning, so I'm not lecturing you. I'm just telling you an opportunity here, okay? So if you have your business expenses mixed in with your personal expenses, like they're all in the same bank account, or they are all in, like, you have them mixed up on your credit card. Guess what? So remember we talked about how like the bookkeeping software is going to be connected to those bank accounts. You're going to have to sort through every single time you go to get coffee, or you go to get groceries, or you get your hair done or your oil changed. You're going to have to sort through every single one of them. So you might want to consider, even if you get nothing else from today, if you do not have a separate business bank account, I heartily suggest that you do that. I suggest that you do it now. Because let's say, even if you are doing, you're dealing with like, you're doing stuff on Excel or on paper, now you only have to look one place for all your business income and your expenses. Okay, so it's going to be really helpful. The other thing that I would say, so sometimes people come to me and they go, okay, Liz, like I hear you on the business bank account, but I went to my bank and they told me I have to have $10,000 in the bank, or I'm going to have this like crazy service charge, and like, I don't have $10,000, so I'm going to keep it mixed up. Okay, how about this? Why don't you open, if your bank has some kind of restrictions, or for whatever reason you can't do that, might I suggest to you that you just open a second bank account? It's okay. Maybe you have a second personal bank account, like a checking account. What I used to do in the beginning of Liz's All Biz is I had a second bank account, the debit card had a little sticker on it. And the one with the sticker was the business card. And I deposited all my business income into that account, and I did all my work expenses out of that account. And then at the end of the year, I only had to look one place to track down my income and my expenses. So that's definitely something to think about. Let's go to the next slide. What are some important accounting concepts to master early in the business? So I'm going to start with, so since we're talking about mixing up bank accounts, I want to talk about business versus personal expenses. So now I know maybe you don't have a passion for bookkeeping and taxes. That's okay. I do. But you want to make sure that you're including in your bookkeeping and your taxes only stuff that's considered business expenses. And sometimes people mix in personal stuff, right? Or the other thing I've seen is that they don't include business expenses, but it can be really tricky to figure out which is which, right? So maybe let's say that, I don't know, you weave baskets, you're a basket weaver, right? And but you have to lean over and you weave the baskets all day and your back hurts. And so you think that you have to get massages, right? Because your back hurts for the basket weaving. So you might think like, hey, I think this is a business expense. And so you might include your massage as a business expense. So when you have kind of stuff like that, so like in your mind, you're like, clearly this is business because it has to do with my basket weaving. And stuff like that, you kind of probably want to run things past a tax person, right? But I would say to you that anything that's clearly personal, you want to make sure that you don't try to push it into your business. I know it can be really, really tempting to like, especially when you like do, like, let's say you're turbo taxing it and you like get that, you like put in your income and you put in your expenses and you're like, get some big tax bill and you're like, oh, and then you're just like, oh, wait a minute, didn't I have more meals or something like that? And you try to like push in stuff that you kind of know is a little bit gray. I would suggest to you that you not do it. Here's the thing that most people get caught basically putting in too many meals, putting in travel. The IRS kind of knows what to look for. So if you're, anyway, they're probably going to come find you. But I would also say that if you're not sure if something's like a business expense, it's best to put it in and then let your tax person know exactly what it is. So in the case of my basket weaver, let's say that business owner, she goes through the year, she gets her massages, and then at the end of the year, she has it clearly labeled in her books, massages, and their tax person's like, oh, I don't think I can use it here. But it's better to kind of tell the person that you're working with on taxes all the things that you feel like are related to taxes. And then here's the thing, even if they can't use them, what it can do is that you can have a discussion with them about why you can't use them, or if you can use them, why you can use them, right? And so then you kind of know more about your business and what kind of expenses you can use. So it can be helpful no matter what. Okay, so business versus personal. Again, probably the biggest thing that I would say to you is like, oh my gosh, please separate out those accounts, because that's the thing is every time, let's say in our, like every time you use that business card, you're going to be thinking like, oh, this is something for business. I'm depositing income. This is a business expense. You're using that different card. But if you have to sort it out at the end of the year or at the end of the month, as you're like sorting transactions in your software, how are you going to keep track of that? I don't know about you, but like so many things are happening in my life. I can't remember if that was a work coffee or a personal coffee with my friend. I just don't remember. So having things segregated into different accounts can be really, really helpful. Because then you know where you have to look. Okay, so a couple other concepts here. So the other things I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about cash versus accrual and gross versus net. Now, it is pretty hard to cover all of bookkeeping in 30 minutes. So you're getting like the greatest hits. All right. So this is like just the highlights. This is a highlight reel of bookkeeping. So let's talk about cash versus accrual. This is something you kind of have to decide as you set up your books and as you do those taxes, even in your first year. So what do I mean by cash versus accrual? Those are two different kinds of bookkeeping that you can put together. So the simplest one is cash. So cash bookkeeping is like, if you give me money, I declare it as income right there when you give it to me, right? And if I pay for something, like I go out and buy a bunch of pens, the minute I pay for these pens, they're an expense, right? So the minute you give me the money, that's income. The minute I buy the pens, it's an expense. So pretty simple. You just kind of have to know what's coming in and out of your bank account. Easy peasy. All right. Let's talk about accrual. Accrual bookkeeping, a little bit more tricky, but it can be really useful for folks who have payables or receivables. What the heck do I mean? Okay, so let's say, let's talk about income and accrual and how that would work. So in an accrual situation for income, let's say I'm an ice cream manufacturer because I love ice cream. So I'm an ice cream manufacturer and I put together a bill, or sorry, I put together an invoice for a grocery store. They've ordered 10 quarts of my ice cream and I give them the 10 quarts and I present them with an invoice and they have terms. Let's say they're a big grocery store. I'm excited to get the account. They get 10 quarts and I give them the ice cream and my invoice and I say, you need to pay this within 30 days. So in an accrual situation, when I give them the invoice, that's what day I'm going to recognize that income. I'm going to count that income on my books. Now, they may or may not pay me, right? So you can start to see I'm counting the income before I might get paid. So if they pay me 30 days later, when they give me that money, I don't have to count it again because I've already counted it as income when I send them that invoice. Now, conversely, on the other side of that with payables, I'm still an ice cream manufacturer. Let's say that I have to buy milk to make my ice cream. So I buy it from a dairy farmer. They give me I don't know, gallons and gallons of milk. I get the gallons and gallons of milk and they present me with a bill. Now, I don't pay that farmer right away because they've given me 30-day terms. Maybe I need them. I need to get paid from the grocery store. So the day that that farmer gives me my bill, I count that as an expense in my books. But then later, when I get my money and I pay him, I don't count it again. I count it right when I get the bill. So it's kind of when the invoices or the bills are being issued, that's when we're counting the income or the expense. It's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more complicated, but it can be really useful for different kinds of businesses. But that's what, if you hear cash versus accrual, that's what they mean. So cash is counting it just literally when you're spending it or getting it. And accrual is often when it's like billed or invoiced. So it could be either way, right? Okay. Gross versus net. Okay. So gross versus net. So someone says, hey, how much did you make last year? So you could give them two numbers. You could give them gross, literally how much income you got, or you could give them net, which would be after expenses, right? So let's say I had a great year. I made $100,000 in ice cream. So from all my grocery stores, $100,000. So that would be the income I got in from the grocery stores. $100,000 is my gross income. But let's say my only expense was my dairy farmer. And, I had to pay her $60,000. So I had $60,000 in expense. I've got a great business model. No other expenses. Totally not feasible, but whatever. So then my net would be 100 minus 60. So my net income would be $40,000. So a lot of times when I'm working with people for planning and they just kind of like throw out a number, I'm just like, is that gross or is that net? And also it's something that you might get asked either when you're looking for help or anyway, like a supplier might ask you those things. But anyway, those are those two terms. It comes up so much, you would be so surprised. All right. May I have the next slide, please? We're going to talk about people. Okay. So at a certain point in your business life, it can't just be you. It can't just be you, right? You're going to need people to help you. All right. So having employees. So there's a couple, sometimes when we use employees, we mean putting people on payroll and getting a payroll service. That's what it should mean. But kind of colloquially and like out there in the real world, sometimes we say the word employees, but what we really mean is 1099 contractors. So these are people we don't have a payroll service. It's just like Joan and Bianca, they are my delivery drivers and I give them $300 every time they go and deliver my ice cream, okay? And they're not getting like a paycheck with like taxes withheld. Literally, they come back on the run, I give them $300, right? So that would be a 1099 or a contract situation. So sometimes people will use the word employees, but they don't actually mean employees, they mean a contractor. Now, sidebar, if you are in California, you have contractors. So this is folks that you are not withholding payroll taxes and you don't have a payroll service. I would encourage you to go look up a bill that passed. Oh my gosh, is it last year? I don't even know what time it is. AB 5, and there are some big restrictions around contractors. So anyway, go take a moment, educate yourself if you do have contractors, just make sure that you're in compliance because those cats mean business over at the EDD. So that's something you should know. So let's talk about payroll. So let's talk about, so you need people to help you. Like I said, if you're in California, I want you to go look up AB 5. I am not a lawyer. I am an accountant. But I am going to tell you, go educate yourself. So let's say you're getting people to help you. You need to set them up on a payroll. I would also encourage you, we talked about like bookkeeping software. I encourage you to get a payroll service. I am a professional accountant and I use one because it's so much faster and cheaper than doing it myself. It is absolutely worth it. And again, this is like tax forms that like you don't want to mess with, you don't want to try to keep up on it. It's not that much money. Some folks will be like, oh, I'm going to do it myself. You do not want to do it yourself. Do not do it yourself. Please don't. Some of the biggest messes I've ever cleaned up are payroll tax messes. So you can comparison shop, but please do use a payroll service or have like a really solid plan around this. The other thing that I want you to think about as you take on employees, this is something that some folks miss, depending on where you are, actually, I think everywhere, there's different setups. You need workers' comp insurance. Okay, so please go get it. Please go get it. A lot of folks are just like, they get themselves set up with a payroll service and they don't get workers' comp. Anyway, I just want you to cover yourself. I just want you to take care of yourself. Please go get workers' comp insurance. A lot of payroll services won't even let you finish the setup without it. Mostly like in California, you can do it privately. Some states, you actually have to do the workers' comp insurance through the state. Don't worry, see, because here's the thing, you don't even have to know, because if you have a payroll service, they'll just tell you what you're supposed to do. So that's great. You don't even have to keep track of it. But that can be really, really important. Again, a service like that is going to help make sure that your employees get their forms at the end of the year. They're going to figure out how much needs to be withheld in taxes from their paychecks. Like that is math you do not want to do. You don't want to do it. A lot of the payroll services out there are just really simple, really user-friendly. Like after like the bookkeeping softwares have broken you down a little bit, you're going to be pleased to get to the bookkeeping land. I mean the payroll land, because they're easy. Like I have run payroll on my phone. Yeah, so you can do it too. Pretty easy. It's good. All right, and I have a little bit more time. I see the next slide. We're going to talk about products. Okay, in the pandemic, all y'all are making products out there. And I love it. Some of them are food. I've been eating so well. I'm for it. So product folks, if you are selling a thing, a widget, a physical item out there in the world, you are probably subject to sales tax. Okay, so I just want you to know that. Okay, so if you're selling things to people, right, you probably need to think about sales tax. So you want to know if the items that you're selling are taxable. Some food items are not. If you are unsure, if you sell food items and you're not sure if your thing that you are selling is taxable or not taxable, there's a lot of information out there on a lot of the websites for the sales tax, like the CDTFA has a ton of resources online. If it doesn't answer your question, call them. Just call them, ask them your questions. Because I will tell you that a lot of states rely on sales tax to make their budgets. Why do you care about that? It means because they're really aggressive about enforcing it. So make sure you're doing the right thing around sales tax. If you need to be collecting it, collect it. Again, like something like using a bookkeeping system can be really helpful, because a lot of those like QuickBooks and Xero and stuff like that, they can calculate it for you and help you keep track of it. So again, as things get more complicated, that's going to be super useful for you. Sales tax, depending on how much you sell. So if you are subject to sales tax, you're probably going to have to get a seller's permit. So you're going to need to register with your state. Sometimes with your county, call. If you're not sure, just call them on the phone, find out. They'll tell you the deal. They want you to pay the taxes. You want to be in compliance. Everybody's on the same page. Make sure that you know what's going on, and then they will assign you a schedule. You are responsible for sending that in. I will tell you that some tax professionals do sales tax as part of their preparation for you, and some do not. If you have a tax professional and you have sales tax, have that conversation with them so you know who's doing what. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about is inventory and cost of goods. Okay, so you sell product. So let's say that let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to make lamps. I'm a lamp maker. Okay, so let's talk about, I sell lamps. And so I want to illustrate this idea of inventory versus cost of goods. Can be tricky. You can ask me like a million times. So let's say I buy all the stuff to make my lamps. So some people would immediately put these in as an expense to the business. I haven't sold my lamps. I've just bought things to make my lamps. So here's a weird thing, and this can mess people up. When I buy all that stuff to make my lamps, that is actually not an expense to the business. It does not decrease my business income. I know, mind blowing. What it is it's actually inventory, right? I'm holding lamps and I have inventory of lamps. So let's say I have 10 lamps that I've made. So the cost to create those 10 lamps is not an expense to the business. It's actually an inventory asset. The IRS even kind of thinks about it like a bank account almost, because it's like worth something and I have it. So it's not an expense yet. It doesn't decrease my business income. So how does that work? So basically, when I sell my lamps, if I sell my lamp, I get to move the cost of my lamps as I sell them into cost of goods sold. It's right there in the name, cost of goods sold, right? So you have to sell the item. And then when you sell the item, that becomes an expense and thus reduces your taxable income. Anyway, I know that's like a very weird concept. Mostly what I want you just to get out of it, if you sell product, is that not everything that you buy to resell, you get to write off right away. So as long as you know that, just know that some of it's going to be inventory, and that can affect your taxable income. That is mostly what I want you to get out of that. So that was my speed lightning round of bookkeeping concepts. I think I'm at time. Oh, and here we are at questions. Ta-da!
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Liz. This is the type of information that I feel like it's just almost impossible to get. The specificity that you went through with the examples, super, super helpful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And we have a lot of questions in the chat. So we've got
okay, I'm ready. Bring them to me.
10, 15 minutes for questions. Okay. So I'm going to read a few of these to you.
All right.
So going back toward the beginning around either using a bookkeeper or bookkeeping software, we had a couple questions about that. So the first is a price range. So I remember you were saying for a bookkeeping software, you might be able to, do like a $20 a month all the way up to online subscription could be, almost 100, something like that. But if you're working with a bookkeeper, do you have any sense of like a ballpark? I'm sure it's different from place to place.
It is so different place to place. So most people are going to work hourly, and it's going to usually, like I've seen rates from like $30 to $90.
Okay.
And a lot of folks, it depends on what your business, like how many hours you need them for.
Yeah.
So it can really be wildly variable. A professional bookkeeper can be super helpful. I mean, that's kind of my job. But so I would just say that like when you're having a conversation, just be really upfront about price. Like if your bookkeeper can't talk to you about money, you don't want them talking to you about your money. So
exactly. And that leads actually to another question about knowing when you have the right bookkeeper. Like, how do you know if you have a good bookkeeper, somebody you can trust? Are there certain maybe questions that people should ask when they're talking to somebody they might want to work with? Or how can you kind of tell that it's going to be a good fit?
That's a really good one. So the thing that I would say that I think is really important is that you have a good rapport. Now, I know that sounds wild, but I think the most important thing is obviously you want them to be able to do good work, but you need to be able to communicate with them really effectively and easily so that you can they can explain what they're doing to you. And you know enough about your business to be able to tell if that's like right on or not. But if you're not having that communication, you're never going to know. They give you reports and you're just like, I didn't make that. You need to be able to have a conversation with like, oh gosh, did they miss something? Or did they just not know what's going on? So communication is where to start, because you can solve a lot of things from there. And if you can't solve them, you can at least uncover them from there.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Such a good point. All right. And then we had a couple of people who really agreed with your QuickBooks recommendation.
I know.
So, and then, oh, this is a good question. We've gotten this a lot before. The difference between an accountant or a CPA and a bookkeeper. Is it necessary to have both, or can one person potentially kind of serve all of those functions?
Okay, so a lot of folks use these terms in like they mix them up, and some people do both, right? And some people do one. So I would actually have you take these. I would actually have you think about it as like the things that they do rather than the nouns that you use to describe them. So some people do bookkeeping, meaning that they help people track income versus expenses, produce those financial reports. Okay, so that's like bookkeeping. And then the second thing is tax preparation, right? And so that's preparing income tax returns. That is like a separate item. Now there's some people who are just do taxes, right? And and then there's some people who do both, and then there's some people who just do bookkeeping. So you want to kind of think about what they do. Now, bookkeeping, there is some people will be like QuickBooks certified. That's cool. Really, honestly, what you're going to look for in a bookkeeper is I would love for you to get like a recommendation of like somebody who uses them and knows that they know it, like that, like personal referrals is like where you want to go here. With tax preparation, obviously, tax preparation is like pretty in depth. So you're really probably looking for someone who's a CPA or an EA. Basically, there is actually a database on the IRS. Again, referrals are probably best, but there is searchable databases of folks that have just to check that they are credentialed and actually able to prepare your taxes and know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, got a few more questions here. So this person's asking if you would suggest opening a payroll account and an operations account, or you just open one business bank account for all your payroll and business expenses. Does it make sense to have like a separate bank account for payroll?
Depends how much you feel like you can keep track of them, honestly. Okay. How busy are you? Are you going to be able to transfer stuff back and forth? The one thing that I have seen people, there's a lot of folks that have used, like I've seen people do like the profit first model. Maybe some of you have heard of it, where you have like a million different bank accounts. Some people love it. I have clients that are like, this is the best thing. I have separate bank accounts for taxes and payroll and operating and this and that. And like, live your best life. Like that is great. If that helps you manage it, fantastic. And then I have other folks who are just like, I'm just going to have one because that's what I can manage. Also totally fine. Now, I would say that you will see some folks that have a separate payroll account, and there is actually a reason. If you were to get into some like weird trouble with like, I don't know, like sales tax. I mean, I hope you don't get into any kind of trouble, but if you were to get into some weird situation, usually they can't put impounds on payroll accounts. So sometimes people, here's hoping that you never have to deal with it, but that is actually sometimes the reason for people to have separate payroll accounts.
Okay, got it.
Hopefully never anything has to handle.
Right, yeah, it's like extra insurance almost. Yeah, just to make sure. Okay. All right, and then this person also kind of has a question about separating the accounts. Says, I have a shared credit card and separate the transactions, and then wondering if she should pay the balance with a personal account and then take the money from a business account to pay back the personal. This to me
I have thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it feels like
I think you just need a different card.
Yeah,
because there's like so many steps. Like you can do it that way. But like, really, it's just easier to just get a separate card. Even if it's, here's the thing, even if it's a separate personal card that you only use for business, because like, what if you miss sorting the transactions? Just having done this for so long, like all the time, all the
It
time.
seems like a lot of extra work to, I mean, that process would make sense, but it's just, you can do other things with your time.
I mean, I would just say eventually transition yourself to like a work only credit card, even if it's like technically personal, like under your name. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that makes sense too.
Also, it's so much easier at the end of the year. You're going to be so excited when you don't have to like mess with all the personal expenses.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And then we have another question. Oh, this is a really good one. About home office, because the past year and a half or so has been crazy. So people have moved, well, a lot of people are home based anyway, but a lot of people even now have moved more home. So how does somebody think about on their taxes primarily, or even for bookkeeping, reporting home office space as part of the business?
Usually you're going to handle it as part of your taxes. Okay, so we're wandering into tax land. So I'm just going to give my little disclaimer of just like, this is general tax advice. Talk to a specific person about your specific circumstances. But here we go in general. Okay, if you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, which I'm guessing a lot of you are, this is going to be relevant for you. If you're a partnership or an S Corp or a C Corp, I hope you have an accountant. Go ask them. Okay. Different, more complicated. But let's just say you have your own business. It's just you're doing your own thing. Let's talk about home office. So what's going to happen is you're going to calculate this on your tax return, not in your books. So this is going to be kind of a calculation you do at the end of the year. So things you're going to need to know: square footage of your home, square footage of your home office. Some words of wisdom. Can only use the area of your home that you use regularly and exclusively. So nothing else could happen there for a home office, right? So if you eat breakfast there, or sometimes you watch movies, not a home office, not to the IRS. So the relationship between those two numbers, so the square footage of your home and the square footage of your home office. So let's say that that's a fifth, like your home office is a fifth of your home. So then there's some calculations you'll do when you do your taxes. You can take like a fifth of maybe your rent payments or your utilities or some other items and use that as a home office expense.
Okay, gotcha. So it's just like a percentage. And that makes sense because it's that percentage of your home. So it stands to reason it would use that percentage of your electricity and that percentage of your, water and all that kind of stuff. And so
now I will tell you some things here, because I've also been doing taxes a really long time. So it's a great deduction. So if you use part of your home, like, oh my gosh, please do this. Also, the IRS does not believe you that 70% of your home is a home office. If you just take pictures and ready yourself for an audit, if you put that on your tax return, because they're going to come and ask you about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Believable. Keep it believable.
Right. Reasonable.
Reasonable.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then we have a little bit more time, just a few more questions here. We had somebody say that their bookkeeper charges $100 a month. Which again, depending on your situation or how complicated your business is, that seems like it might be in a reasonable ballpark.
I mean, honestly, like I will just tell you, we have bookkeeping clients that we work an hour a month, and I have some people that we do over 40 hours of work for a month. So I don't know how much work they're doing for you. So like, does it work for your budget? Do you like that? Do the reports make sense? If so, cool.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And also probably the number of hours needed increases as your business grows and gets more complex, but then you have more money.
Yeah. So here's the other thing is, if you're doing it right, your bookkeeping bill should go up because you should be keeping that bookkeeper real busy.
Right.
So as long as you're making more money, like don't be mad if that bill goes up. It should take them longer to handle it.
Yeah.
That's the sign of winning.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then One last question. If we could go back to talk about QuickBooks a little bit again,
Yeah.
some of the advantages of using the QuickBooks Online specifically, some of the things that are helpful about that for a business owner.
Well, I think that, again, using a system, whether that's QuickBooks Online or desktop or Xero, some of the bigger things, what I think is really useful about that is the online one I like because you can kind of come in at a simple version, right? So you can pay less per month. And then as your business becomes more complicated, you can like add different features like I need invoice, blah, 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 or I need payment processing. And so you can just kind of pay for that stuff as you need it. Rather than paying for it all at once. But really what I like to talk to people about is scalability, right? So you don't want to have to, when your business gets to a certain point, you have to learn another system. You kind of want something that's going to be able to grow with you. And so, like I said, I don't work for them. I'm a little even mad that I say it, but the truth is some of those bigger softwares, you can go all the way from like, they have like a simple start kind of situation to like enterprise versions where like I can do like international tracking of, I could do crazy stuff and I can take the information with me the whole time. And my clients don't have to learn a new system. And if their business is growing that fast, like having to learn a new thing is just kind of, who's time for that?
Yeah, well, and like the transferring of all the information.
Oh
and all
yeah,
that kind of
hopefully
stuff.
that goes right. Like what could go wrong there? Everything.
Yeah,
That's the answer.
exactly. Oh goodness. All right. Well, thank you for talking us through that. And it looks like that's all the time we're going to have for today. Thank you everybody for being engaged and asking your questions in the chat. And thank you, Liz, so much for sharing all of your expertise with us. It's just so valuable to be able to have this kind of conversation. So really appreciate your time. Really, really pleased to be able to do this.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm so happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We will see you on our next webinar. Everybody have a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right. Good evening, everyone.